So, lost in the sands of All-Star Weekend, we had ourselves a conversation that was brought up on Sportsnet.ca that I think, despite flying under the radar, is a very intriguing point to go out there and bring up in regards to the Winnipeg Jets and the LA Kings. Now, you could pretty much tell from the title and from the thumbnail where we're going with this commentary, but today we are talking once more about LA Kings forward Pierre-Luc Dubois. Because when it comes to Dubois and the way that he has performed this season, it has been nothing short of disappointing. He's making a lot of money, he's not producing many points, he's playing on the third line, he's not doing what it is that Dubois is supposed to be doing. And we have made a bunch of videos over the past few months going over the situation, talking about the updates, asking questions like, did the LA Kings win the trade? Did they lose big time? Did the Winnipeg Jets end up making out like bandits in this situation? But when it comes to the trade itself, let's go out there and review an entire idea revolving around what players on the Winnipeg Jets thought of the trade. Because if you go over to this article on Sportsnet.ca from February 1st, so about a week ago, before all the All-Star festivities started up, the article's headline reads this: Rick Bowness on why the Dubois trade helped convince Connor Hellebuyck to re-sign with the Jets. And that entire idea seems crazy. That, hey, Pierre-Luc Dubois, who many could say was one of the better players on the Winnipeg Jets last year, was traded away, and that caused Connor Hellebuyck to re-sign and stay. In a way, it seems kind of backhanded. Wait a minute, what? Does that mean that Dubois was a locker room cancer? It means that the Jets players didn't like him? It means that when this guy gets traded away, the Jets players like it and they want to stay because they traded him away? What does that mean? Well, let's go out there and read the article and see what it is that Sonny Sachdeva goes out there and writes about. Rewind to the final game of last year's postseason effort, and it seems the end of an era was imminent. Head coach Rick Bowness pulling no punches and relaying how disappointed and disgusted he was in his team. A month later, they traded away Dubois, and they bought out Blake Wheeler. For a moment, it seemed that franchise cornerstones Connor Hellebuyck and Mark Scheifele would be the next to go, the pair both heading into the final seasons of their contracts, as the franchise appeared to be heading into the wrong direction. Instead, just as the 23-24 season began, the duo signed on long-term, inkling-matching 7-year, $59.5 million contracts. According to their head coach, it was that same Pierre-Luc Dubois trade that remade the club's forward corps that convinced his star goalie to return. I know after talking to Connor Hellebuyck, he was very pleased with the trade that we made with the LA Kings, Bowness said of his goaltender Thursday at the 2024 All-Star festivities. Thinking back to the offseason that set up Winnipeg's revival, he wanted to make sure that we were invested in winning the Stanley Cup. He told us after the season, the Vezina, yeah, the money, yeah, but he wants to win a Stanley Cup. I think after we made the trade, and he saw that we were making the good moves that we made, that we're a stronger team, that he has a chance to win, I think that had much more bearing than anything. And I think that sort of speaks volumes as to the perspectives regarding Pierre-Luc Dubois. How this is a guy who, maybe in some respect, players might have felt that they could not win a Stanley Cup championship with. We just made a video earlier on this channel talking about the idea of Trevor Zegras getting traded over to Montreal, and the perspective that we brought up was how Big Z may not be one of these guys that you can win a Stanley Cup with. He just doesn't have that X factor, that playoff performing pedigree, that entire aspect that makes him a clutch player. He's just a skilled guy that does skilled things, and that was the perspective we talked about. Of course, you know, Trevor Zegras is in the NHL, and I'm not, so I'm not really somebody to go out there and say it, but that was the perspective brought up. So, for PLD, I'm not saying he's like a Trevor Zegras, you know, he's not doing Michigan goals every time he gets an opportunity to do so. But there is this connotation that Pierre-Luc Dubois, during his time in Columbus and Winnipeg, and especially now in LA, just doesn't show up when the going needs him the most. He's like the opposite of Batman. When you need him, he's not there. So for PLD, it's very intriguing that there is this sort of reputation that, yeah, now that he's gone, now that we got these pieces in return, Iafallo, Velarde, now I, Connor Hellebuyck, want to commit to this organization now. The article then goes out there and says, much has been made about the departure of previously key figures like Dubois and Wheeler and how that's contributed to the campaign Winnipeg's put together up to this point. One that's seen them compile the fourth most points in the NHL through the first half of the 23-24 year. Not to mention Connor Hellebuyck and UFA to be Scheifele removing the question of whether they would stay or go. This is what Rick Bowness goes out there and says. The whole thing is who's in and who's out. You can't have one foot out the door because you don't want to be here. That doesn't work. It affects the whole group, the coach said Thursday. When we went to camp and they signed, it was a strong signal to every player in the organization, our fan base, the city of Winnipeg, that, okay, these guys are in. They're all in, and they're thrilled to be back. They want to be Winnipeg Jets. And that also seems like another shot at PLD. You can't have one foot out the door because you don't want to be here. That doesn't work. Guess what? PLD throughout the entirety of last season was always talked about in trade rumors because this guy doesn't want to stay in Winnipeg. He was already clear that he wants to leave and he's going to be on an expiring deal and he wants to go sign as a UFA in Montreal. He doesn't want to stay in Winnipeg. Doesn't want to stay. One foot's already out the door. Rick Bowness is exactly addressing that because you're playing with a guy who, admittedly, was one of the better players on the team. Dubois had like 60 points last year. He's pretty good. When one of the top dogs on the team is already considering his next destination, when he's already in all these rumors linking him to Montreal and eventually LA, because there's sort of a connotation that says, yeah, even the best guys on our team don't really want to be here, that can influence the room in a pretty negative way. And so, getting rid of the prospect of one of your best teams deciding to leave by trading him away in the first place is a pretty good move. It's a bold move. It's a signal for change to the rest of the locker room. Rick Bowness says this, when I took over the job last summer, in the calls I made to the players, every single one of them said that we just want players here that want to be a Winnipeg Jet. That's all we want. And that's all they got. Okay, maybe PLD wasn't one of the guys who said that because he pretty much wanted out from the get-go, but yeah. Connor Hellebuyck said this in regards to deciding to come back. I think we're in a win-at-all-cost type of model. That's the reason I signed back with the Jets. They know how badly I want to win a cup. I'm not interested in a rebuild. I believe we're all on the same page of trying to win it while I'm there. And part of the reason as well on why Hellebuyck and Scheifele were in a position to sign this contract with this team, I mean, 7 years, 59.5, so do the math on that. That's an AAV of 8.5 mil per season. Part of the reason I think this was able to go down is because, plain and simple, you probably weren't going to find any other teams in the NHL that would have been able to give this money. Not that they're not worth it. Not that Connor Hellebuyck is not worth $8.5 million a year. I mean, he's the best goalie in the league for crying out loud. But if there's any team that's willing to give that money under any circumstance, it's the Winnipeg Jets. No other team was going to go out there and be so willing to shell out that kind of dollar to these two guys, and it's very understandable to see why. You want to take guys that are already established in your organization, you want to take guys who are cult figures for your team historically, and you want to keep them around as long as they're willing to stay, especially if it aligns with your own timeline. For the Winnipeg Jets heading into the year, you could debate that there was a rebuild, retool kind of thing that was needing to happen because Blake Wheeler left and Dubois was traded away and this entire direction was shifting out, and Scheifele and Hellebuyck may have been on the move too. But no, they stuck it through. They worked together, and now they're in a position where they're one of the best teams in the NHL. They were first overall for most of the year. So, for the Winnipeg Jets, what an absolute turnaround, not just for the players signing the contracts, but for the team performance itself. And it seems to have all been catalyzed by that Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. Who would have known that trading Dubois away would have inadvertently, maybe not inadvertently, just directly, caused Connor Hellebuyck to sign long-term with the team? That is a hilarious headline if I've ever seen one, especially considering the hindsight that now PLD and the LA Kings are really going down the drain here. So, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Pierre-Luc Dubois getting traded and Connor Hellebuyck signing as a result. Do you think this was an inevitable kind of conversation to have? Do you think there are some other factors that play into it too? Or is it really just straight up, hey, we got rid of the guy that doesn't want to be here, and that signals to everybody else that, yeah, we're building a team of guys that want to be Winnipeg Jets? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. and bye.